Hello, 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 hello.
Hello, good morning, good
Oh,
afternoon.
good afternoon, good afternoon. We are so excited and thrilled to be here. Got my good friend, my brother, spiritual brother
Yes,
now, as I've
sir.
gotten to know him more here with us today. I'm so excited about this event. This month is Recovery Month. September is National Recovery Month, and that means different things to different people. But we're going to dive into it today. I'm excited to have Dr. Cesar Gonzales here with us. He's going to share some experiences with us throughout this conversation. We thank you all for tuning in with us. We didn't come, usually we come live during your lunch break, but because this content is so important, we wanted to have your dedicated attention, understanding that for those persons who work for Northeast Delta Human Services Authority, you can earn Continuing Education Unit, the CEU. Go ahead and comment and let us know that you are here. Comment on the live stream, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. Comment your first and last name. Tag yourself if you will. Let us know that you're here. I'm going to do these roll calls throughout the segment today because it's so important that we're able to confirm your attendance so that we can give you that certification, because Dr. Gonzales has some information that'll make you better in your profession as you serve the populations that we serve. I'm Deron Talley, Public Information Director here at Northeast Delta Human Services Authority, and we are here as an agency that provides mental health, addictive disorders, developmental disability,
Amen.
and prevention and wellness services throughout the 12 parishes of Northeast Louisiana. We are truly dedicated to transforming how we provide the vital services to our citizens, and that looks different across the board. We continuously innovate. We continuously adopt new ways to serve this unique population that we serve. We bring innovative programs to the people of Northeast Louisiana, which include the integration of behavioral health and primary care services, those services for individuals with behavioral disorders that are at risk for experiencing psychiatric or behavioral emergencies. And we have collaborations with partner agencies that help their staff know how to recognize mental health issues. So we truly work to break down those barriers that keep citizens from obtaining treatment. And our sole purpose is to keep the specific needs of the people in our communities at the forefront of our efforts. Our executive director is Dr. Montez A. Cesar. He's our visionary. He's our leader. He helps us understand the importance of the work we do from day to day. And especially here in my role as public information director, he'll tell me all the time, Tally, we got to let the people know what we're doing for them. Right. Because they don't know what we're doing for others. They won't know what we can do for them. Right. And it's so many examples in situations and scenarios that our various departments are seeing and helping people, whether it's in prevention and wellness, whether it's in our integrated care program, whether it's in our developmental disabilities. Northeast Delta Human Services Authority is truly being that catalyst to make a difference across these vulnerable populations. And so we certainly thank Dr. Cesar for that vision. And before we get started, I do want to go ahead and notate we have a 24/7, 365 crisis hotline. If you or someone you know is dealing with mental health, addiction, or just that behavioral health issue, 800-256-2522. Dial it at any point in time, and we'll get you connected with the help that you deserve. Today, we have Dr. Cesar Gonzales.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Thank you for having me, by the way.
Yes.
And I was going to underscore what you said about that phone call. If you think you don't know if you need to call, why don't you call? Let us figure it out.
So just figure it out.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Ron, for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor. And I've just seen like your model of care and trying to meet the need where it comes and like attach some equity and making sure that any population that may be underserved is served. And I just really, really want to underscore that is amazing. And it's an honor. It's a pleasure to be here. And anything I can do to serve, just please let me know. So
certainly,
yeah, we met at the opioid conference. The energy got, it was just good energy, and it was like we're talking about something that potentially had the pitfall of being tragic, but we made it into a celebration, a collaboration of community. So this is an effort to continue that, and I really thank you for the privilege.
Yes, indeed, you're one of our dynamic speakers at the Opioid Summit, and what I love about the work that you do is not just a profession for you; it's a ministry for you. I can tell it's a mission ministry connected to you. And I think throughout this conversation today, people will understand what I mean when I say it's not just a profession, but a ministry for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hopefully so.
Yeah. But let me share a little bit about your credential. He's certified. Dr. Gonzales is certified in family medicine and addiction medicine through the American Board of Family Practice and American Board of Addiction Medicine. He's personally and professionally committed to the treatment of chemically dependent individuals and their families. And he's passionate about seeing his patients recover and live the lives that they deserve, free from the bondage of addiction. Before we can talk recovery, September is Recovery Month, but the bondage of addiction.
Correct.
Before recovery, there's something that we are recovering from or coming out of or being rehabilitated from.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about addiction.
Yeah. So addiction is, it's always a moving target, and not necessarily because we don't know or understand the dynamics, but it's as our education and our awareness and as treatments evolve, they give us more insight into how we behave in a space. And, yes, definitely there's a physical component. We know that. There's a mental component. We've had hurdles in the past. You talk about 1970s, 1980s legislature, even as far as like the 90s and 2000s, really elevating, saying hey, we have parity. We belong like in our mental, because I'm in recovery. So in case we don't know, I don't want to say that, we belong just as equal as medical problems, because it is a disease and it is an aberration of an organ, and the organ being the one that operates here. But more importantly, there's a spiritual component, a component of connectivity. And anytime I could reach out here right now and say, when we talk about spiritual connection, we know in our hearts, but it's elusive, it's that elusive thing. So what we delve into is evidence-based, right? Because incrementally, we all know how things were designed. It's evident, the invisible qualities are visible, right? So we see that, but we can't describe them. So we try to catch up with science. So as we incrementally get better, that changes how we address it. So addiction is like a pathologic relationship with a substance, place, person. So anything like that can push you towards addiction. Now, I posit to anybody to say, we are architecture, we are designed to have something that we do, quote unquote, chase, addicted to, worship, whatever. We have that space in our soul. We're connected to one another. We're connected to things. And so when we talk about addiction, I don't categorize people and say, you're going to be this for life, you're going to not be this for life. I say, how are you living now? Like, what is your relationship like? How is life going? What are some fruits that you're living on? What are some things that you've lost? So I have very real conversations with people. I'm really quick to say, hey, look, when my first meeting, I don't know you. Like, I am a physician. Yes, I'm blessed, but I'm not the physician. There's only one true physician, right?
Oh, man.
Yeah. So I try to keep that real, and I try to say, if anything, and in this business, we don't, self-disclosure is a thing. We always trying to make sure we're not pumping ourselves up. But if I could ever kind of underscore some of the medical management that I'm doing, I try to bring up a relational component, saying, look, you're not alone. Like, this is something that people have gone through, that you'd be surprised. You would be really surprised who struggles with these addictions. And it might even be that we're all designed to be addicted, but that's a discussion that will take another. So when you talk about Recovery Month, I just really want to say that open your minds, open your hearts. Just we all know what we've been through with family, friends, loved ones, people that we work with. And this disease it can get really ugly. It can get nasty. There's some things that really hurt us. So we can have resentments or hard feelings about people. But just if you think about it as a struggle or something that we're working on, help is on the way for these folks. And just kind of, if we could remodel our heart from one of judgment and just resentment, acceptance and compassion. And that's just kind of what I do stuff like this for, is to reach out and to hopefully reach through screens, or I just saw your energy, and I know you get it. So, that's really what I want to do, is to reach as many, not to preach to or to kind of tell, but just to share experience, strength, and hope. So,
Right. And to be transparent here, not to, call you out or anything, but, you mentioned that you're in recovery.
Absolutely.
From what did you struggle with that may be able to help somebody understand, oh, wow, he went through what I'm dealing with maybe right now?
Oh, absolutely. So I was doing an inventory, and I was like, my first addiction was Star Wars toys. So, so it doesn't have to be a drug or substance.
There you go.
Yeah. So, collecting but to honestly, and all jokes aside, that first drink of alcohol had me. It had me a jump. I come from a family, long line of, and I could tell when I first had that, it was highly consequential. I come from El Paso, Texas. So back then we could just walk across the border, and you got a paper with a picture on. It didn't have to be you, here you go. So at age 13, 14, starting to delve into that pathologic relationship found, I gave all to it. I from the first drink, something lit up in me, and I was like, I want to do this forever, so that was a problem I struggled with. And then you just named the list. In medical school, I put the alcohol down, but it wasn't that I was sober from alcohol. I had transitioned to opioids. So I have an intimate relationship with, prescription and non-prescription opioids. And as I got darker and darker, I just started adding things onto there: the sedative hypnotics, the benzodiazepines, the stimulants. Wow. Everybody in the world knows about Adderall for studying. Well, I would take it when I'm not studying too. So, so that was a problem. So you talk about any and all substances. And then in recovery, I struggled with other addictions too. Like, addiction can take many forms. I struggle with, if you ask my wife, with work addiction, problems with tempering that, with not having that scratch in the back of my mind. She senses some irritability, and I use that to cope with things. Struggle with, exercise, work addiction. So, definitely you see me scrolling. I mean, that's, you ask me how I'm doing, because, so it kind of takes a morph. And as I get further on in recovery, I get to know myself more. And it's not like, if you're in recovery, you're kind of bulletproof because you have a spiritual shield around you, and you get to speak honestly and openly about these things. So you don't ever have to be shameful about it. I think that, it's wise you don't want to go into town and just raise up and say, I'm in recovery, but you do, you have fellow brethren. If you're struggling with something, you don't have to say that you're less than or more than or anything like that. And that's when you ask about my addiction, it just has many faceted things, and it brings a mindfulness to it. I just try to be aware of what I bring to the table on any given situation. I want to know that I have this propensity to do that, just to kind of tether myself. And I want to loop in people that care about me, right? I want to loop in maybe yourself or my wife or my sponsor now, that I want to let them know, hey, what I might be up to. And people that care about me will let me know.
That's right. So, I mean, we named this segment, Recovery is Mine. And it makes me think too, addiction doesn't own us. While we may have that addictive personality, and whether it's the toys as a child, whether it's sex, whether it's drugs or drinks, whether shopping, scrolling, absolutely, that addictive personality, we all have those traits and habits. But those things don't have to own us. No. We can break out of that. But what we can own is our wholeness, is our recovery. Dr. Cesar says all the time, you touched on it, is there's a hole in the soul. Right. Yeah, and it's because we go on trying to fill that hole with everything else, right, but the true physician, as you referred to, right? And I love that conversation. I love to see that you've mixed. Again, it's not just a profession for you, but a ministry, and it allows you to see things beyond a research component, but also understanding that there is a higher support power that we can tap into.
Absolutely. And I think that was always something that I bring to the table. It's like, yes, I am operating in science and evidence-based medicine, but I know where the source comes from. Right. And you're able to do both, right, and I never push that on people. It's a personal journey for folks. I can remember a time when I was struggling with faith and, doubts and all that. And I think he wants that. He really wants individual's journey to be that for a reason, but there's a way to operate to hold those two things in perfect tension of the science and what I can do. And then also to be faithful and to be humble and to really know ultimately where my power is derived from. And then to feel that, man, that hole in the soul is such a powerful, because the more I tried to fill it with stuff, the further away it got. It was this elusive power of just out of touch. Like it was almost the more I reached for it, the more I pushed drugs and alcohol away. And it kind of get me on that line. And it was like, you get that hook and you're in the boat, it's done. So, you just hope it's catch and release at that point. But, but ultimately when you start looking at, and you deal in truth and honesty, and you kind of say, look, this is what I'm dealing with. I do have shame and guilt about it. And when you're honest and you're just humble, then it's a miracle. It's like this paradox. Once you surrender, you win the battle. Right. So that's what. And I'd say I'd even go a little further. When we were talking a little bit earlier with Dr. Cesar, it's really evident. Like when we're talking about things, we are talking about in ways of a spiritual connectivity. We recover together. You said about families recovering. Man, I love that, because it doesn't operate in a void, right? Like you and I are connected to people We're not just isolated. And when I was drinking and using, I was like, man, I'm not hurting anybody. I make sure I get my stuff done. And
Yep.
then, but my mom,
Mhm.
she knew from
Mhm.
jump. She knows right now. She's watching the show, probably saying like, he
Hi,
didn't
Mom.
brush his teeth last night. Whatever. Yeah. Hey, mom. And she was instrumental in my recovery. Just a
Awesome.
brave woman, brave woman. And wouldn't be here without her.
Mhm.
Would not be here without her. She was ready to to have those hard conversations. Because she loves her boy.
Yeah.
And then also just knowing that that help is on the way, and it's only getting better. We're getting better as far as like I didn't even know there was an addiction medicine when I went through recovery. A good friend of me, Dr. John Coluca, I was working with at Palmetto. He says, "Hey man, you want to be?" I was like, "What is that? I don't know. Yeah, I'll check it out." And man, you talk about opening the world to like I didn't know, and I was a physician. I was studying, and I was not. So it doesn't hinder people if they don't understand this. So we want to keep those lines open and educate, explain, have access. We just want to have awareness, and that's why we're doing this wonderful thing is, look, if you don't know, come to us. If we don't know, we'll point you in the right direction. Right.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's just a little bit about my background. I really wanted to be a psychiatrist. That's what I wanted. But, institutions frown on using opioids. So, they want you to be kind of clean and sober. So I unfortunately lost a couple jobs, but that was a blessing because, I don't, I should not. The boards of medicine and all that, they operate at a certain degree. And it's a privilege to practice. It's not a right, and I had to learn that. And it really helped me kind of elevate my rock bottom. I didn't necessarily have to end up in a car or under a bridge overdose, because I had that leverage against me. I was like, I do want to participate in life. And I had to make that decision. Am I willing to follow this to the gates of insanity, or do I want to have a hard stop and look at my life? And God, thank you, God, for like, I had very little to offer to my recovery early on. So,
I heard you talk about, I didn't, you didn't have to sleep under a bridge or become homeless or anything like that. But those are the stereotypes that come with the look of an addict.
Correct.
What, I guess, shapes and forms, how do you describe what an addict looks like, or what have you seen the addicts to look like?
Man, I've learned to say, I don't know. Like it's this job is amazing. Every day I'm learning something new. It looks like you or me. It looks like exactly what we might think. And it looks like, man, and to me, that's why this is such a, man, this life is, we always holding on to image, right? It's all about image and presentation and holding on. And I think the last thing we'll ever let go of is work. So, people can struggle in silence and suffer in silence all the time. An addict will look like, just somebody who has a face and breathes air and drinks water. That's because I think ultimately we don't know each other until we know each other. So sitting down and having a conversation and sensing that, oh, hey, if I told someone they're an addict on the first day, that's not a good doctor. I think I got to form a relationship and just kind of go over time. And I have seen this reach the highest highs and the lowest lows. And is there anything that's common? Yeah. We're all human, and I'm sure you've seen it too. It's like, mothers, younger and younger. We're seeing a lot more younger kids struggling too. Older people, hey, people that lived in the 60s and 70s, guess how old they are now? So guess what they're still doing, so it has a far reach, man. It's just, there's no shame. There's no shame. It's like, we all belong at the table. So that's my opinion on it. So.
One more thing, and we're going to shift more into the recovery side, but I really wanted, and I liked how we framed this addiction side. But what makes people kind of just hold on to that secret, or made you hold on to, I have this addiction? And at what point, I guess the follow-up to that would be when you decided that I got to let this go?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, and that's a great, wow, that's a great question. I have to the first thing that comes to mind is judgment. And it wasn't, when I did I have a sponsor. I'm an AA, and he'd like me to call him more. Sorry, I'll call you. But always he was just like, I brought him a lot of stuff. I'd be like, oh my God, XYZ catastrophe, and he would come back to the same things. Okay, what is threatened by this? It would, he'd kind of say, and that was born in what we do in the steps of AA, which I, would save my life. But in the fourth and fifth step. The fourth step was me thinking what my life looks like. Oh, this guy did me wrong. This guy, oh, poor me. And then I looked at it. He's like, well, it looks like you were this here. And I was like, okay, looks like you had a role in this, so judgmentalism came up a lot. So I think for me, my secrets is like judging myself and like trying to project that onto like what others may judge about me. So those, and even now operating now, like, because we all have guilt and shame. So I really had to get really meta with it and think like, oh, this is a problem. Like, this is an operation. Like, I judge. I don't only judge myself, but I judge down the road. I mean, when 165 cut in front of me, what comes out? It's like, oh, this, yeah. So, but that awareness too is being aware of that and being like curious about it and seeing like, there I go again, and kind of just downing the negative self-talk. Because I am when I was growing up, for whatever reason, and this is not on mom and dad at all, I just had this thing about me that was always talking bad about myself, just like, man, I wish you did this. Man, I wish you were better. Man. And that puts a stethoscope around your neck, but it also puts a noose around your neck. You know what I mean? It's like this terminal mass of what's going to win out. So you look at people that are very successful, and I found this too, is like, there's a component of like, man, are you okay? Because I mean, I know you have all the things, but what did it take to get there?
Right.
And so my secret keeping is really like, it's love and the loss of love that I will suffer. Like, I just want to continue to be loved. So that can be a very venomous thing if I will protect that at all costs. You know what I mean? And if I don't have an authentic relationship with somebody, and I'm not just able to say, you know what, I messed up, and my wife's looking right now. She says he does not say that often. So, but we're trying to get better. And we're trying to get better, but it is that self-flagellation and this need to keep up, and this, you're always externalizing and looking at how better it is for the other person, and we do it like that. We don't even need to get deep with it. We just look at one another and we already kind of start to place ourselves, and that sort of thing it's what breaks the bonds of community and unity. And, that is what really kind of starts getting us off. And once we're off there and alone, man, guess who gets us, man? He's got us, and we're done. So, but yeah, that's, hopefully that answered some of your questions.
No, certainly. That feeling of judgment, and we know when we're wrong, even when we're not ready to change the behavior of being wrong. And so, because we know we're wrong, I'm going to make sure that everyone around me, I'm going to project that. I'm going to project that, and you're going to feel right. And so whenever you try and come back at me and tell me you're an alcoholic, I already know I'm an alcoholic.
Right.
So what?
Exactly.
And that's kind of, we build this up, and it's like the core, the why am I an alcoholic is what we'll make sure I am an alcoholic, but I'll never share with you why I'm using this to fill the hole in the soul.
Right.
And so it's because of, to your example, and I feel that even I'll turn to a bottle, I'll turn to a cigar, or just anything for several days in a row, because maybe something's going wrong in the marriage. Maybe one of my children, or I'm seeing different, and I'm concerned. And so instead of communicating, maybe something with my own health. And so, you know what? I'm not even going to let anybody understand that vulnerability around me.
Right.
But I'll do this wrong thing. And if somebody says something about me doing that wrong thing, at least that's all they have on me. So what? But you don't know what I really have underneath.
Oh, yeah. Because to connect the dots, it's okay to be drinking heavy. Yeah. You're right. You're right. But then that core, right? It's exactly. Like, and to me, the judgmental comes with, I got this. I'm working on it. I get it. I don't have this. Exactly. Like, guess what? I don't, man. Like, if I'm doing that, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to project, because, maybe a week, I'm going to, I'll skip it here and there.
Control that.
Yeah, I got this, and then, man, that lie, it adds up, right? And then, man, parenting has really, like, you try to control some little humans, and, it's like, so, and that's another thing too. Your identity is always evolving, man. As you get gifts, man, there's new higher level problems, it's like, so, or lower level. So it's like, this thing isn't always, you're just fighting this battle, just, and it's not about addiction or mental health. It's about life, man. That's right. It's like, so I like, give me a cigar after this or something. No, it's good. Yeah.
But, and so now when we shift into recovery, what does that look like? And at what point did you, get okay with flipping that switch and saying, you know what, I'm taking control of my life. I'm taking control of the things that I gravitate toward.
Ooh, that's a good one. And I don't, this is a pause one, because I think part of my testimony is that like really was done for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was kind of, but not really. I think what you're asking is what point did I really realize? I remember like when I was in California working on a residency, you know, I was heavily, you know, man, if you look at my notes in med school, it's like pages of the opiate receptor, pages of, and then like you talk about diabetes by half paragraph, you know, like, yeah, what, you know, things I'm gonna be working on for life. But I was really obsessed. And unfortunately, I got into like, you know, using heavier substances. And I remember, man, I got into some really heavy IV drug use of stuff that was not like, you know, Dilaudid and stuff. And I just remember like waking up one time and you know, I used to smoke back then. And, you know, I had just burn marks all over me. I had a cut on my, and I was just like, man, that was awesome. You know, and I was like, something's not right. It was almost way off and this is not good, you know? I'm going to keep on until something happens. And at that point, I really wanted help because I started like I lost that job, came back home, just went back into I'm going to get back on the grind. I'm going to get another job, got that other job. And I was insane. You know, I was just like, just keep this, you know, we'll do that later. I couldn't wait to get back to work. Ultimately, when I couldn't get back to work, you know, I didn't have a car. I was living in Austin, Texas, working at a used bookstore. And I was rocking with some people that like, you know, hey, can we borrow your car? I shouldn't have been letting them the car because they were, you know, they were delving into the same substances and ended up on a bus and having to take the bus to work. And then I had that degree in the back of my closet. I was like, this is awful. Like either end it or start it. And for me, it was start it, you know, and it was done for me, man. And like, you know, at that process, like, it's like a wide process. It was like, yeah, you have all this behavior, but like it slowly had to be chipped away. It slowly had to be clipped off. And then it was like, there was no denying it's me. This is me. And I'm not letting go of this thing. I'm holding on to it. And I'll never forget like Lamar and 55th Street. I'm pulling up to work and I'm looking out there and I'm saying, I got an MD in my closet and I'm taking the bus to sell used books, you know? And it's like, you know, it's a great job. I mean, yeah, but, it was just heartbreaking. And the part that I paused on was like, I wanted to do that, but it still was months until anything changed, you know? So it's like, it was devastating, you know? And I think that's when I'm out there and when I see people, I don't want people to feel that way, man. I'm like, that was awful, dude. Like if you could avoid that, like, let me just tell you my story, you know, let me just share with you what it was like for me. And, I mean, because man, the thoughts I was having, man, we lose people to those thoughts, you know. Certainly. So, you know, certainly,
yeah. That's that, you know, coming to yourself moment. Yeah. If we look at the prodigal son, people like to only apply it to a father and a son, but we all have that moment where we've gone off, done things, and you can equate that father to your profession, your gift, your skill set, everything,
right?
And you going away from it because you wanted to hold on to drugs and a certain group of friends, and it took you farther and farther away from home, which is, you know, your MD and so forth. And then that bus moment, no car, and I'm getting ready to take a bus to a bookstore. I got an MD.
It's weird. Yeah, that's like obvious, right? Yeah, moment of clarity. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but we've all been there. Yeah. We've all had that coming to myself moment, and it's what do you do now? Now that you've come to yourself, now what do you do is the question that we all have to answer.
Absolutely. And what you do is you stay alive and you fight and you go. You go where they say go and you do what they say, because I can't make those decisions anymore. Right. And then and man, those knee buckling moments when there's nothing but you and the wall and God, and it's obvious. I mean, I'm telling you, there's a conviction in my soul, man. That man, he's a good father, man. Yes, Lord. He will give me over to all the debased nature. He said, you could have it. Wow. You could have it, man. And at that crossroads, I just, for whatever reason, chose him. And he's faithful, man. He's faithful. And what went right away, it was like a David thing. It was like, hey, you're anointed. See you later. Like, when? I don't know. I'll call you, you know? So, but yeah, you got to be ready. And sometimes, you know, a lot of our brothers and sisters don't have that. And I mourn that. You know, I just really, you know, I think that, you know, he knows best and all that, but it's still, I'm never shocked. I'm never not shocked. It's, you know, just having that and also being in recovery is being ready to feel those emotions. You know, I didn't want to feel anything. It was too much to look at myself. Life was too hard already. And then looking at, that's what I was trying. It was trauma, man. Just trauma after trauma after trauma. You peel that off. It's like, I got to walk this with somebody else, man. It's too hard, you know? So early recovery is and early recovery for everybody, man. It's just grab hold, man. Just, I don't even care if it's like your worst, just you hate the dude. I just talk to somebody every day, and just somebody,
right.
you know what I mean? Even if they tell you hard things, it's going to get better. So,
Yeah. 800-256-2522. That's Northeast Delta HSA's 24/7, 365 crisis hotline. If you or someone you know right now are dealing with addiction, and maybe they haven't come to that I've come to myself moment, and they're still out there. Maybe they're at that moment right now. 800-256-2522 right now, so that you can get somebody to walk with you into this recovery stage, in this next stage of your journey. Northeast Delta HSA, if you're a staff member looking for CEUs, comment your name. Comment your name right now, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, so that we can confirm your attendance. This conversation is so great, and we're not going to stop. We got a few more things to talk about.
Let's do it. Yeah.
But I just had to plug a few things real
Absolutely.
quick.
Always.
When we talk in recovery,
mm-hmm.
and whether we've been diagnosed addict,
mm-hmm.
or your wife just called you an addict, alcoholic, whatever,
mm-hmm.
talk about, okay, it's Thanksgiving. I drank for Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, we had Christmas holiday party with the work, holiday party with the church, and each of these weekends in a row we're drinking and partying and drinking. Now it's Christmas, and then New Year's comes, and I make a resolution: I'm not drinking anymore.
Right.
And I start out the first 2 weeks and I'm fine. But somewhere around the third week, Martin Luther King holiday, and I feel sick, my stomach getting right, my head starts hurting. From your medical experience, what's going on with that person?
Well, absolutely. So this is where we shift gears, right, to the neurochemistry of addiction. Right. So what we all are designed to is to breathe, to live, to draw air, to drink water, to procreate, to eat. So when you take something that's so potent like an alcohol, or an opiate or an methamphetamine, so when we get that jolt of that dopamine surge, it is so massive, our brain's like, whoa, what just happened? Salience, right? That's like, that was really important, but the novelty of it, I did not expect that. That was awesome, right? The crystal palace of our mind. If you pull anybody in a recovery and you ask them about their first drink or use, they could be the most depressed. They light up, because it preserves that. Guess what? So now you chase that, but that will never happen again, because that level of gated response and dopamine, now that you anticipate it, that takes away. Wow. It takes away. So I'm always chasing that before you. So we reinforce that by hitting it and trying to get it and keep coming back to that. Like you said, over time, now you're drifting into, get some tolerance. You get some like, hey, I'm shrinking into like, I will chase this because, maybe I don't need to go to church this time. Maybe just, let me go here. And, you start making decisions where it tease you away from things you used to like to do. Maybe your mood and affect change. You're using so much, you don't really have that dopamine on that receptor anymore. So the depression comes in. You're down the road. Yes, you see things are bad. So you stop. Neurologically, we don't heal just like that. It's not like a scratch where you form a scar. Like, it takes a lot of energy to regenerate neurons, to rebirth those presynaptic, fill up those little bags of serotonin, dopamine, what have you. It takes a minute. So it's great. You stop, you feel that head of steam. Down the road, you're going to have some problems. You're going to have that adrenaline. So when we numb ourselves out, alcohol's up here, adrenaline's like, hey, this dude needs to hear this information. It's important. You know what I mean? Like, let's just ratchet it up, right? So they pull me into jail, they throw me in rehab, and then guess what? The alcohol's down, but this little tsunami wave is still cresting, And when that hits you, man, it hits you like a freight train. You get just irritable, anxious, angry. You feel like the wall's gonna fall out. Every little medical problem that I had when I was using becomes a huge deal now. Like, look at this hangnail. You think I'm gonna die, right? That wants you to go back. It wants you to go back, and it wants you to reset so you don't feel this irritability. So you're going to need some guidance through that. You're going to need to temper that. You're going to need some comfort through that, encouragement. So that's why we do treatment. That's why we do counseling. That's why medications may come into it. Nobody is designed to withstand that. The system was designed to not ignore that, to act. Because when that adrenaline hits, it's go time. And where do we go? To the comfort, right? We go back to the devil we know. We go back to what was comforting. And I tell you what, that is, if you don't hear anything, man, nobody judges a relapse. Nobody judges the urges or cravings I was scared to death to share that I was thinking about using, or that I had a craving, and that, in treatment, I'm in treatment. I'm afraid to share that I want to use drugs. Like, how absurd is that? Just once you share that stuff, man, we could help with that. You know what I mean? And that's anticipated. And what you're talking about is like that post-acute withdrawal, as we're just wrestling with going this way or going that way. We're used to this road. We know what we can do. Hey, we'll take the consequences, but this road's scary. It's like the less traveled road, right? So, and I think neurochemically, it's really neat. That's why, man, I love talking to people, because you never know what people know until you know what they know. Kids, you gotta breathe life into them. You gotta tell them about things. People seem. I project on like that they're understanding what I'm saying, but my wife tells me all the time, like, you go from A to Z, but pencil it in, man. I'm at B. Like, just, can you put the dots together for me? And that should be a goal for all of us. Education, encouragement. It doesn't get old, man. Just being there, saying things over. I work at my clinic, and if those my Tamara and Christina, I trust them implicitly with my life. They're awesome. They must roll their eyes because I say the same things over and over and over. But it means that's what you do. You lift up the word. You keep lifting it up, and then sooner or later it takes purchase. That's right. You got to be dealing. You realize people are dealing with a reinforcement thing that they've been doing. They've been doing the same thing. They've been reinforcing things. I've been reinforcing negative behaviors over it. So I need to reinforce
positive.
Yeah, you got to do the thing. So that's what I would say to that situation. Hey, completely understandable. Yeah. And no judgment doesn't mean you're an addict. It doesn't mean you're like totally like this total awful person. It means that you're right on. That's what we would expect. Yeah.
And so, in other words, you're normal.
You're normal.
This is what your body is expected to do.
Absolutely.
Is to have what you call post-acute
withdrawal syndrome.
Post-acute withdrawal syndrome.
Comes down the road.
So use the information that we're sharing today to encourage you when you're on that journey. When you say, I'm not going to go shopping as much, when I'm not going to scroll social media, and you have that post-acute withdrawal, don't beat yourself up.
No, please don't. Yeah,
I've been there.
I've been there.
Yeah, there is help. That's one of the things that you all do at your office. Medical assisted treatment.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that and how that works in the recovery.
Okay, great.
Process.
So medication assisted treatment is two prongs, right? Not just medicine. I just really want to underscore that. So, and it's not like treatment either for everybody. It's like, so we know in the medical community that certain medications work better with treatment, right? More robust treatment is better. So you got things like alcohol use disorder. You got things like opioid use disorder, things that we're going to be dependent on, that we are going to be withdrawing from, that will be distracting us if we, around the 1970s or maybe a little earlier, you talk about large urban communities in the United States battling heroin addiction. It was just ripping families apart, ripping communities apart. People were just stealing, robbing, harming each other for drugs. So drugs like methadone came on the scene, and basically what it's saying, look, if you put the knives and guns down, we give you it's harm reduction. We'll give you the medicine. This one, it was a potent drug. It has a specific way it operates, and it works really good. They're on medicine, but they don't have any treatment. So medicine assisted treatment is that therapy component that is assisted by medication. You got drugs like, naltrexone, which is an opiate blocker. It gets a little tricky. And then now methadone, which is a pure opiate. It's like a traditional opiate agonist. And then you got Suboxone, buprenorphine, which is, it partially activates that mu receptor, but it also sits on others and deactivates them. So that's an assessment is needed, and you can provide these medicines in a controlled setting and with parameters and boundaries, with an understanding between client and physician. Look, we're going to operate in these boundaries. Ain't nobody going to kick you out. We understand that you may struggle with other substances, but if it is, we're going to start dialing up your treatment. If we give you this medicine, Suboxone or methadone or Vivitrol, and you're great. But if you're tripping up a little bit, maybe we're going to have you go through some certain hurdles. Maybe you're going to have to go to see a counselor once a week. If it keeps happening and there's valid circumstances, we know it's not like an intentional diversion. So, you're not trying to like get these meds and sell them or get high or whatever. Okay, maybe we talk about your dose, but then you're going to have to come to treatment a little more. You just meet them where they're at. That's what I needed. Part of treatment was like, I don't know if I could do it. Like I failed. I went to 3 treatments. So for me, the last time I was like, I give up. And my mom's like, I'm going to take out of my pension. That's a bad bet, Mom. I need to save your money. I'll just stay in this like state facility. But it was basically like saying, look, we can add you some medicines with judgment and discernment and an honest conversation, and then get you better. And then with the idea to be off of them, like free. Like my job is to put myself out of business. You know, I think that a lot of time, you know, or just to kind of keep slots able for the next wave, or however you want to look at it. And so we do that. We offer that, and we partner with a lot of facilities. We partner with other, you know, behavioral health clinics and IOPs, treatment centers. And we just kind of intervene wherever people at. You know, if they're getting better, we say stay connected, fare thee well. If they're getting worse, we may dial up the higher level of care. That's where you talk about going to IOP or inpatient rehab or behavioral. You know, if you have some mental health disorders, then you talk about a mental health facility. Because a lot of times when people get better, then you arrest the disease of addiction. Then you have, oh man, you're struggling with depression, or
insecure about something now,
right?
That void,
anxiety.
I'm really going to heal now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what makes recovery a success? Then, you know, you talked about being able to move people through. How do we define success for a person in recovery?
Man, you look at the.
Are you a success?
I don't know. I ask you. This is the answer. I ask you. So I think it's fruits of the spirit, right? It goes back to that. You know, am I experiencing patience? Am I experiencing gentleness, kindness? You know, self-control, right? You know, like humbleness. Am I full of love? Am I peaceful? Joy. Joy. I would say that really defines recovery. Because, man, when I was like, man, I'm going to go AA, it's miserable. Man, I'm like, oh, hey, I'm an addict. Where's the coffee, cigarettes? That was my concept. But when I got into it, man, I had a fellowship of brothers and sisters that were on fire for this thing, man. They were like, no, we're going to scoop you up. Come on, you're going to come to a meeting with us. And we're laughing. You think about who gets sober, it's other addicts. I was rocking with them already. That's who I related to. Take the drugs away, sky's the limit. It was joy-filled. It was camaraderie. We had compassion for one another. We loved each other. We still love each other. That's what defines recovery for me. It's not like 90 days. Here's your chip. Hey, you know, here's a 1 year. Oh, how you living though, dude? Are you feeling good? I mean, you look a little, you know, I've known many a person that is just, you know, myself too, because we've gone through personal struggles in our family where it's just like, God, I'm so burdened right now. I'm so overwhelmed just by life circumstances, family, and you know, babies. And I think what defines it is the fruit that you see. And you should know them by their fruits, man. And it's the same thing, you know. So but it's not a lifelong diagnosis. You're not always X, Y, Z. It's a dynamic. So certainly. Am I a success? I don't know. It's scary. I'm like, I don't. I just kind of like I just defer and circumspection. Like having just like around you, people kind of to reflect your light back to you. So.
Well, according to your definition and looking at the fruits of spirit and the time that I've got to engage you, and especially here in the last hour or so that we spent, man, I can see your joy. I can see your peace. I can see your meekness. I can see your gentleness, your temperance. I can see your love, man. And so according to your definition, man, you are a success, but we know success is a journey. Success is not a dead end. Oh, I'm here now. We know it's a continuum of things. But man, it's truly an honor to share this time with you.
Likewise.
And to learn and to relate to you. And I hope that our audience, our listeners, and those who have tuned in for the continuing education unit, CEUs, again, comment your name. If you know someone who needs assistance, 800-256-2522.
Please,
when you call that number, you get direct access to the Northeast Delta HSA's integrated care. And when we say integrated care, that's behavior and primary care, but it also expands into our relationships with organizations and personal experts, professional experts like Dr. Gonzales for those services that we don't provide on site in one of our clinics. But when we talk about that medication assisted treatment, that's what they do as well. Absolutely. And so when you come through us, call that number, we can introduce you and give you that warm exchange to further help you along the way. And those types of resources are key to improving overall population health for our region.
Absolutely. I think that's great. It's great what you do. So thank you for having me.
No, certainly. We're supposed to have some questions. If anybody has some questions, feel free to let us know what questions you may have. Let me see if I can get our questions up. If we can get someone. We'll field a few questions here before we end.
I like this part where I get to see how truthful I am. Right? It's like, I don't know.
All right, we have a question from Tracy Coldrum.
Tracy Coldrum. How you doing, Tracy?
She asks, what are some of the common losses that individuals face in recovery?
Common losses individuals face in recovery.
So that's great. Ooh, okay. And I like that. Losses. Well, you first of all, in recovery, I would say you lose a relationship with something that you really had a bond with, your substance or behavior of choice. In one aspect of what I hear the question to be, so it's kind of a mourning process. You kind of really were hoping that this thing would come back, or this person would really fill you up. You lose the pressure to perform. You lose the pressure to please. You lose pride. You lose judgment. You lose depression. You gain insight. You gain purpose. And please stop me if this is off target, but I think if you talk about grief and ability to have a latitude or absorb things that be life-changing, you gain the ability to walk through trauma and to feel. So you could lose anything, but now you have a brethren, you have a family, and you have a tools, and you have a spiritual program that will really shepherd you through that. I'll self-disclose a little bit. My wife and I, we struggled with infertility for years. We lost our precious baby, Eva, and I mean, I had been sober 15 and 14 years at that point. And God bless my church family. It wasn't even my radar. They're like, hey, look, I know this might be a time when you're thinking about using, or, that's something. And I was like, oh, that's a good point. And so I had to check myself, what am I losing? I'm losing the ability to really self-regulate. I'm losing the ability to, to kind of get the rest. I'm losing the ability to not be sad. And so I think when you talk about loss, I think you lose a lot of negative stuff, but you're also able to deal with loss better. If I kind of hear that question right. So that's a great question. So.
All right, on the next one. From Kara Jackson Etienne.
All right, Miss Kara.
Why is having a recovery coach important?
Why is having a recovery coach important?
Just like I can't treat myself, man. There's certain things that I'm blind to. And you talk about a coach. What does a coach do? A coach assesses, a coach trains. So, and how does he do that? How do they do that? By relationship. So it's really important to invest in that. I love that. Because if it's awkward for you to have to call someone or to engage someone in how to live life, it should be. We're all independent. We're all growing. We all know how to. Yeah. But I tell you what, when you invest in something, and when you have that relationship, and you get used to picking up that phone and having, even if it's like a 2-minute conversation. How you doing? Good. Did you make your bed? No. Go bye. Hey, how you doing? Nothing to report. Okay, bye. You have 50 days left. That person who's interacting with you will know you, and they'll be able to know, hey, you're looking a little, and they'll know your strengths, they'll know your weaknesses, and they'll be able to kind of fill that gap and to step in. So when you say life coach or sponsor or mentor or shepherd, something like that, we all have them, guys. Look at the president. He has a cabinet. That's right. He doesn't do things on his own. You got King David. He worked with, the advisors. He trusted Joab, and ultimately he's the guy that could do the thing he couldn't and take out his son, So I would just say a coach is important because self can't see self. And it's a great question. And it was awkward for me to get a sponsor. I just didn't like calling another grown man and so, but after a while it became a friendship. And then I realized it wasn't a friendship. He had a duty, and he said, come to a meeting or don't ever call me again. I was like, wow, I'll be there, so because I valued the relationship. So it's an investment. It's an investment in your recovery, having someone else kind of navigate those waters with you. Hey, you guys are grown up. You can see a lot of stuff. It's just for the 6, man. They got your 6. So that's it.
That's right.
All right. The next 2 comments are from YouTube. From Miss Camille Short.
Okay, Miss Camille.
What would you suggest to someone who experiences repeated relapses?
Someone dealing with repeated relapse.
I tell them that they're normal, that it's part of the process. We God forbid that we have relapses. It's not a necessary criteria, but it is a part of the process, and it's a lifelong disease. Now we tend to fall into like, if they're close relapses, we tend to judge a little bit. We tend like, man, they're not serious, they're not getting it. If they're far out, then it becomes a little bit more socially acceptable. But repeated relapse may just be, hey, look, we're not meeting that person specifically on their treatment plan. Look, we get really think about, there's a lot of people coming to us, and then we may be guilty of rubber stamping and just not really leaning in and getting to know that individual. And, if you're dealing with all this chaos or relapse, guess what? You never get to, man. You never get to the roots. You never get to that life, that person, how they operate in space, how they deal. If I'm always dealing with somebody who's relapsing or stealing or in jail, it's easy to get distracted by all that noise, So I just say encouragement, make sure they're protected, naloxone. Fentanyl is everywhere. Like, just make sure that they are around people that have it. That the naloxone is not for the person. I can't take it if I'm ducked out. They need to be someone around them needs to have naloxone, and just some grace, man. Just keep on trying. Don't give up. If you're done with them, kick them over to me, man. Like, get a fresh set of eyes on them. I'd be happy to talk with them. I'm a repeated relapser, so please don't think that's not part of the journey. So
one of the most powerful things a friend of mine shared with me is, we have to give ourselves grace, be willing to give each other grace.
Wow.
We always ask God for grace. God, give me grace. God, I need your grace, all your graces. But we don't think that we too should lend grace to ourselves or to others.
Wow.
The same grace we're asking from God is the same grace that we should apply within ourselves and to others. And I think a lot of the judgment that we have of ourselves in those vulnerabilities, in those moments of weakness, will be able to stand up a little more strong, a little stronger and say, you know what? Maybe this is post-acute withdrawal.
Yeah, maybe there's something going on.
But the grace will allow us to slow down and think about, it ain't just me,
It just hit me when you said grace I'm so guilty of that. Like, I'm asking him because I obviously can't give it to myself, right? Like, that's huge. I don't know about you, but I'm hard on myself. I'm really
hard on it. Yes,
So and that's a great point. So,
Any other questions?
We've got two more. We're gonna
rolling in.
Since you mentioned fentanyl, we're gonna jump into actually a fentanyl specific question.
Okay.
From Caitlin Keppinger. Keppinger. How has fentanyl changed the game as far as opiate addiction and opiate addiction treatment?
Man, this is a question I answer daily. So thank you, Caitlin. I really appreciate the question. So it just raised the stakes. Like, man, whenever, when I was getting sober and when I sponsored people, I could used to be able to tell them, they come in, they're not ready. Go get you some more till you're ready. Not today. Not today. One and done, man. We don't have that. We have to educate. I'll tell you what, this is how it changed the game. I'm watching a show, and I don't know how we are on time, with my son. With my son. He's 7 years old, and they're doing a lumbar procedure, and they're stuck in the woods. So the only thing they have to do to give him for pain is heroin, right? And I'm like, oh, this is an opportunity. I gotta tell him, he's got to know. And then I don't want to be too gully with it and, scare him. But like, I was like, hey, man, his school. So it takes a village. His school is great. He had this great teacher who read him The Radiant Child, Jean-Michel Basquiat. Great artist. I love him. And that's me. I love him. He came home one day talking about Basquiat. And I'm like, tell me more, son. And that teacher made it a biblical lesson. She talked about addiction with that 6-year-old boy. Wow. So in order to reinforce that, I was like, hey, look, this medicine is so, look at him. He went to sleep and he may not come back. And you remember Jean-Michel Basquiat? You remember him? And that's how he died. And I thought he knew. He's like, he died? Yeah, son, remember overdose? He's like, she said, yeah, he took too much medicine, but I know he died. I was like, yeah, son, you always want to be careful if somebody gives you something. Just don't take, and I just leave it there. I'm not like, oh, by the way, if you meet criteria and you're and just not overdad it, but just kind of, I'm having conversations with people. Man, we've lost people on one use. That was their first use ever. Young kids, man, old people that have been sober forever. I say old, maybe my age. I'm 47, sober forever. Man, if we go back out, we are toast, man. Mm-hmm. So it's changed the game. And when you talk about medication assisted therapy, my criteria used to be this, Now I'm like, just come one, come all. Let's talk, man. Let's just talk. If you need, and I used to, it used to be like pretty strict, and now it's like, we got to be a little more loose with it. So it's changed the whole game. It's made like acceptance and escalated education. It's made it like a wider berth, children, older, whoever, we're talking about it. Because, man, I don't know about you, but we've just lost so many people. Like, and it's just, it never fails to be devastating. And as a former opiate addict, I know what it's like to be powerless and just to be like, whatever, man, it's just, it's a precipice you stand out of. So we got to rescue him off that precipice. So, great question.
All right. And we've got one last question. This one from YouTube, from Dr. Avius Carroll.
Okay. Cool.
And she asks, what are some ways to incorporate self-care or wellness into recovery?
Wow. I mean, that's where it's really at. I mean, so we talk about dysregulation. How do I know I'm not well? I don't know if I'm not well because I've been with myself the whole time. You got to want to have these things in play. When I was, about 10 years sober, I wasn't emotionally sober. So wellness was the target. It was obvious. I was going to meetings. I was abstinent. I was doing the things. I didn't need medicine, but I wasn't feeling right. And I hadn't really put things in play to balance, to really temper myself. And that's addiction when you don't have balance, right? So dry and clean is not sober, man. Right. Unity, connection, like balance is sober. So having that mindfulness, having that quiet time, having a good balance, like yoga has been studied, we know that really does affect, it does breed esteem, just having those connection points of good diet, sleep, exercise. I have so many people come to me, I need XYZ medicine. How do you sleep? Oh, I don't. Go sleep and come back and talk to me. What? Yeah. You don't need medicine. You need let's talk about it. The same things remain the same forever. Like things that are, and wellness is mind, body, soul, and it is all connected. It is all interplay. A lot of my talks are very seldom about drugs and alcohol and very seldom about, medicines. We actually talk a lot about how you live in and what things you have in play to check your wellness. And I try to do that now. It's like, how am I balancing things, making room in my life? And not very well sometimes. That's okay too. But if I'm not having wellness, I need to have somebody involved in that discussion too. It's like, you're crossing these, you're kind of looking a little, and so wellness is essential. It's kind of like that we talk about rock bottom. Yeah. Why get there? Why even try to go near that, right? The higher up you can do it, the better. And even pre-relapse, I think what wellness really does, I got the answer. I talk around a little. So what wellness really does, it gives us an aperture into that pre-relapse and it lets it not get that far. So, yeah. So I go all around Sally's house.
That's good. Gotcha. That's good. One of the things I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about, and I want you to kind of explain too, Northeast Delta HSA, we have Narcan.
Yeah,
it's one of the greatest resources that we have in our prevention wellness department, and our SOAR team actually goes around and train law enforcement and other agencies to how to use it, even faith-based organizations on how to use it. But talk about Narcan, and it's important. And I do want the public to know that Northeast Delta HSA has Narcan available for free distribution.
Absolutely. And so do we. Going back to Caitlin's question, that's exactly what we were talking about is, having that, bringing that equity and like making it available to people, no matter who they are. And this state has been great because we always deal with, right, we're Louisiana, man. We jump out. People are suffering, the flood. We're all going to get in our boat and go help them. Same with resources. We do a lot with a little, and LaSOR program has been amazing. And Caitlin, I think your question is, on training for Narcan. How do we do that? We reach out to you. We reach out to us, facilities, and just get that education on how to utilize it, how to do it. If you find someone, the loved one, God forbid that happens. I've had so many success stories where they come in, man, how to use my Narcan. I was like, well, you're Austin, you're here, and that's a good feeling. Yeah, it could save a life. And you listen, man, it's easy. Just put in there, do that. But look, get the training, look online, and Narcan naloxone that's what we're combating it with. And that's how we're getting people to like not have to pay that ultimate price before we can talk to them. So that's good. You'll have people. So that's amazing, right?
Yes, indeed.
Cool.
Our opioid team does great work across the region for us. Our entire prevention wellness department, because that wellness is so key to the recovery process.
Absolutely.
And we, as part of our innovative approach and integrated care, even we do wellness in a variety of ways for people to think about us as a government agency.
Mhm.
We do anything from a jig aerobics, where we incorporate hip hop music.
Absolutely.
And of course, we have our youth programs. And
Awesome.
we do it in a variety of innovative ways to reach people where they are,
Yeah.
as you say,
Yeah.
So
That's a blessing into
Yeah.
the community, man. Just and that's you guys do an amazing job. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you again, Dr. Gonzales.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for tuning in with us again. Before we log off, if you're Northeast Delta HSA looking for your CEUs, comment your name. Let us do a last second roll call. I thank you all. I thank Dr. Montez A. Cesar, our executive director, for allowing us to use this platform to celebrate Recovery Month. Recovery is mine. It belongs to you. You can take control of whatever it is that you've been addicted to, that may have had control of you. You take it back today. You declare, you charge yourself today to own it. You find somebody. Go get you a coach. Go get you a companion, somebody that will walk or run this race with you. And if 3 weeks in, you start feeling some withdrawals, give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace and stay in the race.
Amen.
We thank you all again for your time.
Thank you.
And tune in with us. Stay connected with Northeast Delta. We like to say follow the Phoenix. We're on TikTok. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Follow us at Any Delta HSA. We're also on Instagram as well. And of course, look at our website, anydeltahsa.org. And again, our crisis hotline, 24/7, 365, 800-256-2522. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Appreciate it. Very good, man. Good job. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Is that good?
Oh, man, this is great.
That's fun.